Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. Coming up on today's episode, you know her as half of television's most glamorous, crime-solving couple. Always impeccably dressed, impossibly witty, and never far from danger. But behind the scenes, she's lived a life every bit as adventurous as her TV character. From working with Hollywood legends to protecting endangered wildlife halfway across the world. She's elegant, fearless, and forever fascinating. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, actor Stefanie Powers from Hart to Hart. Hello.
Hello.
It's very nice to see you.
And it's very nice to see you, too.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to sit down with us today. I really appreciate it. And I've been a fan.
Well, I was a fan of yours, too.
Oh, thank you.
I did. I mean, I immediately twigged on being you were so familiar to me and to everyone, and I enjoyed you.
I got familiar with everybody.
But I really enjoyed you.
Thank you very much.
On our local television.
How has Hollywood shaped your view of fame?
Well, I don't have a view of fame. I'm grateful for... and I mean this most sincerely. I'm not being overly modest. I am grateful for the success that I have been able to have and hope to continue having sometime in the future, because it allows me to promote and garner attention for the real important work that is involved in wildlife conservation. So it's a bridge to work, to better work, and to a public persona that allows people to lend you their ear and sometimes their pocketbook.
Yes.
For the things that you're passionate about. I'm not passionate about glorifying myself.
You worked under contract with Columbia Pictures, correct?
Yes, I was one of the last of the red hot contract players, yes.
What was it like working in the studio system that you recall?
Oh, I recall it vividly. It was the greatest finishing school one could have had.
Really?
Because you had access to everything, and you were encouraged to have access to it. You were encouraged to go to the editing department, to go to the camera department, to go. Of course, you had to go to the wardrobe department because they would measure you and make a body for you, so that they would do the fittings for the costumes on the body that had your name on it. Then you had all kinds of sessions with photographers in the gallery, so that you would learn then and try looks and different ways of angles for the camera that you would, for yourself, that you would begin to learn. And then they would try different looks on you. Well, it was always a bit disturbing how they thought that I might be made up, because I was the girl next door. I was a kid, and I was 16 years old when I went into contract to Columbia. So they tried to glamorize me into one of those Horrell glamour girl. Well, that was just ludicrous. I mean, it looked so silly on me. So there was, because of what was in place, fading, but what was still in place in the studio system, it was an ideal learning ground. It was, as I said, it was like a finishing school. And then, of course, they loaned you to other studios, and I was loaned to other studios. And in the first rush of the contract, I was going from film to film to film, 15 movies in 5 years. So literally going from film to film to film.
Did you like that?
Yes. I loved it. And I was working with extraordinary people and loving sometimes when they would come and give me a little tidbit of what to do. And I remember Maureen O'Hara, because in those days they didn't have all these fabulous fast cameras with fast film, and it only required a couple of lights. We were working out of doors on a Western movie called McClintock.
Oh, yes.
And I had the joy of being cast as the daughter of Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne. What a fabulous pleasure. And the girlfriend, or the potential girlfriend, of Patrick Wayne, with whom I am now going to be partnered again in a production of Love Letters, which we're going to do in January as a fundraiser for the William Holden Wildlife Foundation. But in the experience of doing McClintock, we were shooting outside, 35 millimeter film, in the bright lights. So they had to use these enormous, what they called arc lights, to adjust for the brightness of the surrounding light. They had to fill our faces with these enormous arc lights, which were very hot, and you could hardly keep your eyes open.
Right.
And Maureen, before every take, would look up at the sun, and she would do this and blink and do this in the sun, and I was fascinated. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, well, it was a technique that she'd been taught of how to keep your eyes open with that big arc light glaring at you, or even the sun if you're shooting out of doors. And it was a kind of blinking process that would adjust the eye and adjust the iris so that you never cried with all that light, because my eyes would water like mad. And Maureen taught me that little trick.
I interviewed her once. She was a delightful person.
Oh, and she'd get very Irish.
Yes, she would.
She'd get more Irish the longer you talked to her.
She had that little lilt in her voice. Yeah, a wonderful woman.
Wonderful woman. I knew her daughter was my age, and so there was a big connection that we had. And all the way through, I visited her in Ireland, and all the way through, I attended the honorary Academy Award she got, and kept in touch with her all the way to the end, when she was living with her grandson, Connor.
I remember I was working for CBS when I interviewed her, and we brought her into the studio. And when word got around, there was a whole line of people who wanted to meet her outside the studio when we were done with the interview. And she was so charming to everyone, you know. I remarked that I had read about, she was doing the movie with John Candy. I think it was
yes.
I think it was called Mother.
Yeah.
And when I had read that when she first appeared on the set, the crew gave her like a standing ovation. And she said, "Where did you read that?" She was just so charming and surprised. And who do you?
I just want to add.
Oh, by all
in
means.
Ireland, she was a national treasure. And because I visited her several times in Ireland, and if you were traveling to Ireland and you met any Irish people and you did not know anything about the movie Quiet Man, I think they'd kick you out of the country. She was a national treasure, and she was treated that way by everybody around her. And because she and her brothers and all in the entire family were all from Cork, it was like walking with the king or the queen down the street. You know, it was.
Tell me about, you mentioned John Wayne. What memories have you of him?
Oh, I loved him. He was bigger than life, and so much bigger than life, and so much. Because of his upbringing, and because John Ford always had the same people working on his films, whether it was the makeup artist to the man who served coffee, or the stuntmen who fell off of horses, and even the John Ford Indians. he engulfed everybody the way John Ford did, with this familial feeling. And so he certainly absorbed me into that family, because everybody on that movie was part of the John Ford family. Even the director, who was Andy McLaughlin, who was Victor McLaughlin's son. And of course, Victor McLaughlin was in The Quiet Man, and many other films that they had done together. And but it was so it was such an incredible experience, and I had seen all those westerns, so I was hooked. And he was very generous to me, very generous.
What first attracted you to the role of Jennifer Hart?
Well, everybody who was doing it, I think that's the bottom line. As I said, the world was very small, and I knew everybody that was doing it. Aaron Spelling had been, when he was a writer and married to Carolyn Jones, he was writing for, the Dick Powell show. And we had in Hollywood, for all the young actors and boys and girls and young agents and all, we had a softball league. And so we needed we had a coach. And the coach for our girls' softball team was Aaron Spelling. And it was great fun, because he was, Aaron Spelling looked like Jiminy Crickets. He was this little skinny man, not at all athletic. And he'd be rushing out to talk to the girls and say, we have to, coaching us, But he was very generous to us. He and Caroline had barbecues and invited all the girls. So when he and Leonard Goldberg united and formed Spelling Goldberg, the first movie for television was, I think it was called Five Desperate Women. Nothing to do with what later came in what was it called? Five Desperate Women? No, it was Five Desperate Women. And we filmed it on Catalina Island, and it was the very first production for Spelling and Goldberg, and I was in it. So that was a kind of continuation of our friendship and relationship. So I knew them. Robert Wagner I had worked with and I had met socially. Tom Mankiewicz, who was rewriting and going to direct the pilot, I had known since I was 17 years old. So it was very much a family sort of, once again, another family. I was in San Francisco doing a production of Cyrano de Bergerac with Stacy Keach. We were doing our out-of-town opening in anticipation of going to New York. And so when they called me and said, we're doing this pilot, would you be interested? It's a little bit like The Thin Man. And I knew that all the people involved, so that was attractive enough. The idea of The Thin Man was also extremely attractive. And Aaron's, I said, well, this is an embarrassment of riches. We're supposed to go to New York. We're supposed to go to Broadway. And he said, well, there might be a writer's strike for the newspapers. And historically, when there was a newspaper strike, nobody would bring a play into New York because they couldn't publicize it. So the theater was, on hold. So that was the greatest newspaper strike that ever happened as far as my career is concerned, because I could do the pilot of Heart to Heart.
Heart to Heart was set in San Francisco, right?
No, it was set in California, in Los Angeles.
Oh, it was set in Los Angeles?
Yes, the house was meant to be here, but it was not, it wasn't, it just was incidental, the location.
You and Robert Wagner had great chemistry. Did that spark build over time, or was it immediate with you two?
Well, according to Tom Mankiewicz, who was directing it, it was the first scene. I had to climb through a window, walk over, the camera was on my feet, walk over to the side of the bed, unzip, step out of a jumpsuit, climb into bed, and say, hello, darling. And it was he said, when I said cut print, I knew it was there. And I guess it was just a natural, some kind of natural chemistry. I'm eternally grateful for it. And we still have it a bit. I see him every once in a while, about a few times a year. And he can always push my buttons. We can always laugh and giggle and still use the old jokes.
I was watching a news show this morning, and they were interviewing an young actress, up-and-comer, named Jessie Buckley. And she was talking about how she has a movie upcoming, and the person she's co-starring with, whose name slips my mind right now, but she said they had chemistry meetings where to see if they actually had chemistry. Did you ever do anything like that? No. Either you had it or you didn't.
That's it. And one of the other things was that we both came from the school of acting where you played with the person. It was like a tennis game. You hit the ball back and forth. And that's not always the case with other actors. They're not always there for you. Sometimes I've heard that some of the new actors won't even stand off camera to do their offstage lines. So it was a different consciousness, and there was certainly, we both came from the studio system, and we were raised with the manners of respect for the director, for the cameraman, for the other fellow actors, and we would never have gotten away with that.
I think I recently saw a picture of the two of you together on Instagram or something like that. You do see each other every once in a while?
We do, yes.
Has there ever been talk of doing a reboot?
Incessantly.
Oh, really?
But I think when the show went off the air as a weekly series, there was a period where we were both working and doing other things, and then we got together every once in a while, and we would do little short tours of 5-week tours of the play Love Letters, which became very, very successful because we played large. We played the Chicago Theater, which is 3,000 seats in this adorable play, which is basically two people sitting at a desk reading the letters that they wrote to each other, that the characters wrote to each other over a lifetime. We opened the show in London, and we did it in Toronto, we did it in Montreal, we did it in Australia, and we did over 500 performances of that show. And of course, we weren't reading it; we were performing but we were literally sitting at a table. And at the Chicago Theater, we broke. Oh, I remember it's the only time I've ever made the cover of Variety, the industry magazine, when we broke all records with 8 shows, where we grossed $1 million over 8 shows, which was quite a record.
Mm-hmm. Do you appreciate or do you enjoy stage, screen, or TV? Is there one in particular that you enjoy more than the other?
I think it really has to do with the material. I've done all of them, some of them better than others. I continually work in the theater. I work a great deal in England because you can do short runs, and there are some interesting plays that we're allowed to do with interesting characters that I wouldn't normally be playing with. So that part of it is always a greater challenge and more interesting than playing something that's too familiar.
And we'll be right back. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. You can get our episodes a day before they post anywhere else. You can see what guests will be coming up and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll see what goes on before and after the episode, plus exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You also spend a lot of time in Africa.
That's my other home, yes, and
a passion for you,
and
isn't it?
It's a great passion. It is a huge commitment and a huge passion. And we, in the 1950s, William Holden was a very big movie star. When he went out to Kenya as a hunter in those days, game was prolific, and not everybody, there wasn't a huge slaughter of animals. There was no, the poaching that we are now experiencing, which is causing the extinction of so many species, was not at all prevalent in those days. The word conservation wasn't in anybody's vocabulary, nor was the notion of extinction. But he had a vision, and that first safari that he went on, safari means trip, sometimes associated with hunting, sometimes associated with photography. But that first safari he and two friends went on led to them buying an upcountry inn, which they turned into the Mount Kenya Safari Club, which became kind of the jewel in the crown of destinations for tourists at a certain point. And then he negotiated to buy the 2,000 acres surrounding this beautiful spot. It's on the slopes of Mount Kenya at about 7,000 feet above sea level. And had a vision to create, this is 1959, he had a vision to create a game ranch for the preservation of species. There were none. So he truly was a visionary. And in those days, people were very different about personal publicity, and he never wanted to get any personal publicity out of his efforts to preserve wildlife in very early days of people's consciousness that wildlife needed preservation. So it was very discreet what he was doing, and no one really knew much about it. When I went to Kenya with him for the very first time, it was 1973, and I was in love with animals anyway, from a long history of being involved with animals. A lot of horses, mainly horses, but then my stepfather, who bred racehorses, also collected exotic animals. So I had lots of exotics in my lexicon.
What did you think the first time you went?
To Africa?
Yes.
Well, I had been to North Africa, and of course I had my expectations of what it would look like, and but I don't think anybody can. Doesn't matter how much it changes. The first time you are around these extraordinary creatures, it's awe-inspiring. And I was already bitten, and I certainly was in love with the man, so I was in love with everything he wanted to do and loved to do. So it was a seamless experience of joy.
Do you miss him?
I miss him. I miss sometimes when something particularly interesting happens that I know he would have enjoyed experiencing, but I don't think he would have been too happy with the world as it is.
Did your relationship with him influence your worldview?
I suppose in some ways, yes. We were quite compatible in many of our views. But he had 26 years more experience than I had, and in very different ways. I don't think he could ever have foreseen what has transpired in the world of conservation. nor could he have. I think he estimated that there would be a great deal of predation because the handwriting was on the wall, and then even up to the time that he passed away, the consciousness of local people on the need and the importance of preserving flora and fauna was really in its infancy. Now it's much more evolved, and now it's something everybody's looking for answers. How do we rescue the planet? How do we save the species? What do we do about climate change, and what can we do about climate change? All of which is interrelated, because our mission statement for the William Holden Wildlife Foundation, which I established in his name, specifically because I knew he wanted to create an education center so that local people could understand the need for preservation and conservation, and whether they were young or mature, that the reason for not wanting them to cut down a tree had a purpose to it. And only through education could we accomplish some of that awareness. So the mission statement of the William Holden Wildlife Foundation is wildlife conservation through education and alternatives to habitat destruction. So they work in concert with one another, because what's the point of preserving species and biodiversity if you have no habitat for them to exist in? So the habitat, the destruction and overexploitation of habitat is part and parcel what's responsible for climate change. Everybody has said, oh, it's automobiles, but it's not automobiles. It is the pollution that automobiles create, which is not balanced by the ability of the planet to absorb the carbon monoxide and produce oxygen, because we've overexploited it. So all of that in concert is what we work on. And we have about between 11 and 14,000 students a year that come through our main education center. We have an additional 7,000 that we deal with on a continual basis who are in our outreach program, which deals with rather impoverished, extremely rural and rather impoverished tribal areas. And so we're busy. We have a lot to do.
Is there an accomplishment that you're proudest of?
I don't look at things as having been accomplished. It's a process that has to continue and does continue. And
ongoing.
Must. Otherwise, nothing's been resolved, so I can't consider it being accomplished.
Okay. You were once cast in West Side Story, but there was a complication.
I was too young. I was cast as one of the jets. There were 2 girl jets. Well, 3. There was Anybody's, and then there was Velma and Graciela, and I was cast as Velma and rehearsed with them for, 8 weeks, something like that, 6 weeks, before they realized, or they understood that it was really impractical, because I could only work so many hours, and then had to have a teacher on the set, and it was and my part wasn't germane to but it was an extraordinary experience to work for and with the people that I worked with, but for the people that were so astonishing, like Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise and George Chakiris, who's a very good friend of mine, and
who won an Oscar.
Who won an Oscar? Well deserved.
Yeah.
And the great dancers.
And also, what about Leonard Bernstein was part of the whole thing too, wasn't he?
Yes, but I never met him.
Oh, no?
No, sadly.
You were also the first female lead in an adventure series.
Yes, although we didn't realize it at the time, and nothing was made of it. The Girl from U.N.C.L.E. So I was under contract to Columbia. I had done 15 motion pictures, and then one day my agent called and said, actually I was in England at the time. I was in England at the time because my boyfriend was doing a little movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I was fascinated by everything about it, and I didn't want to come home. And my agent called and said, "Well, you have to come home because you've been sold. You've been sold to MGM to do The Girl from U.N.C.L.E." So my contract was sold, and I went along with it.
What was that like?
The Girl from U.N.C.L.E.?
No.
Or having
being
a contract
sold.
Well, it was the way things were, you know.
You were able to accept it that way?
Yes.
It's
Why
just,
not?
a matter of fact, just the way it was.
And I mean, to be honest, one should have been grateful, and I was, for the experience and the privilege of being under contract and making those movies and learning as you did, you know. So much to learn.
Well, was there a role you ever turned down that you later regretted?
Oh no, there was a role that I didn't get that I regretted, and I always thought that there was some reason that my agent in England could have done a bit more to push and everything. It was the Alien. I was the first person to get the script. I was doing another movie in Europe, and
The Sigourney Weaver Alien?
Yes, the Sigourney Weaver Alien, and I was. I met the director and I met the producers and all of that, and they gave me a script and said, "Read it and let us know." And and I had to go back to work with Roger Moore and oh my gosh, that was a wonderful cast of characters. David Niven, Roger Moore, Elliot Gould, Claudia Cardinelli. It was a great movie.
Wow.
Yes. So I went back to work to finish, and I kept calling my agents and saying, "Yes, I mean, this is fabulous. I would love to do this role, please, please, please." And then nothing happened.
Well, that's part of life.
That's life. Easy come, easy go.
Easy come, easy go. What's a lesson you learned in Hollywood the hard way?
Whoa. Well, I think, I think when things let you down, or when you miss an opportunity, or have feel that you've done something wrong, that would have facilitated either getting that part or something. I guess that's disappointing. But I've been so lucky. I have so much to be grateful for that.
Do you look forward? Are you a forward-looking person?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, without a doubt.
How much time do you spend on average in Africa during the course of a year?
Usually half my time, doing half the year, because we're so involved in our latest project, which is our laboratory and the results of the testing and verification of the science of what we're doing to regenerate agriculture. Very exciting stuff.
And animals?
Oh, yes. Constant animals.
I've been reading a
all
lot
over the place.
about the white rhinoceros lately, on the verge of extinction.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, I don't know if it can be any more on the verge because there aren't any. And the last, the white rhino, so the difference between the black rhino and the white rhino, it's not white. It's the Afrikaans word for wide, W-I-D-E, is white. And the white rhino is a grazing animal. It grazes and it's got a big mouth that's like a vacuum cleaner, and it grazes along the ground, whereas the black rhino is a browser, and it has a prehensile lip. So the mouth goes straight forward, and the lip is independent prehensile. So it grabs the greenery, the vegetation, and tears it, and that's the way it eats. So it's a grazer, a browser, and a grazer. The browser eats things higher up, and the grazer eats things from the ground.
Do you have a favorite animal?
I love elephants. They are, I mean, I can't say enough about them. I'd bore the world. I'd clear the room with my precious observations and the brilliant moments that I've had in the bush just observing them. They are extraordinary creatures.
And we'll be right back. Are you in favor of zoos?
Zoos have a great purpose, and responsible zoos, meaning zoos that the new age of zoos, that enlightened zoos that gave enough space for habitat. In some cases, zoos are the only refuge for species to survive. It used to have a much more sinister
reputation.
Well, not a reputation, it's sinister. There used to be much more sinister activities. So the way in which zoos were made were inhibiting the health and the welfare of the animals by virtue of confined quarters. Now, I think and hope and pray that most of the zoos in the world are enlightened, although there are still species that are living in war zones, which is very worrying. And a lot of people have done an awful lot of work rescuing animals out of war zones, but it's very difficult.
What could someone do if they wanted to support the work you're doing in Africa?
I'm afraid it has to do with money. I'm afraid that in order to continue to do the work that we do and beyond, we need financing. And it's one of those horrible things. we need support. We have a very strong ethic about the way in which we treat and collect funds. We do not use any funds for any personal activities. So nobody pays for my airplane ticket. I don't take donor money for transport to Kenya or for any of the services that support our foundation, the work of our foundation. So all of our donations go 100% without tampering to the donation, to the work of the foundation, and to the money that donors have been generous enough to give us.
The reading you're doing in January with Patrick Wayne.
Yes.
Do you know him well? Just out of curiosity?
Well, we've known each other for years and years and years. Our lives have come ebbed and flowed and everything, and I'm not a constant in his life, but it seems as if for some unknown reason we just seem to have a connection, and and a friendship that goes beyond just something that we did it because we worked together.
And this production, reading, will benefit your foundation?
That's what it's for, yes.
Did you ever concern yourself with aging in a business that seems obsessed with youth?
Well, there's nothing I can do, is there?
No, there really isn't.
It's if you worry about it, then you can't get anything done.
Right. Tell me, if you will, how did this all get started?
Which?
Life.
Oh, life.
Acting, your acting career.
Well, my mother came to California and met my father.
That is the beginning.
That is the beginning. Two Polish people found each other. It's quite amazing. And then they divorced. And so I was raised by an Irishman, Irish Catholic breeder of racehorses, which was right up my alley because I loved anything to do with animals. And I still do. The evolution of a career, my mother, when she was pregnant, always said that she loved the ballet and she loved the symphony and all, but the ballet in particular. So when she was pregnant with me, she went to see a lot of ballet, and so maybe when I popped out and kept dancing around the house, because we always had music playing, she decided that when I got to a certain age that probably it might be a good idea to get dancing lessons. So there was a wonderful man in Hollywood, and you remember how small this community was.
It can be, yes. It could be.
Well, it was then. I'm talking about the 50s. And when there was somebody in town that had a great reputation and was offering and a great provenance, as this man did, all the mummies and daddies wanted their children to have dance lessons with him. His name was Michel Panayev, and he had been a partner to Danilova, the famous ballerina of the Ballet Russe. They were both with the Ballet Russe when the war broke out, Second World War. And because in those days, if we declared war, anybody male who was not, whether they were a citizen or not, they were drafted. And here was this ballet dancer drafted into a tank. So he went back to Europe, where he couldn't go because Ballet Russe was on tour in the United States when the war broke out in Europe. And of course, when the war was over, because he had served in the military, he was given a fast track to citizenship if he wished it, which he did wish because Europe was in tatters and shambles. And he decided that because California had palm trees and reminded him of the south of France, where the Ballet Russe was located, he decided to come to California and Hollywood, of course. And he opened a ballet studio on Highland, and people gravitated to it, not just parents who wanted their children, their girl children in particular, to be graceful and have dance lessons. But every one of the great dancing stars at MGM, at 20th Century Fox, would go there to take ballet classes, the professional ballet classes at noon. And we would see people like Leslie Caron and Jean Maire and Roland Petit and all of these incredible, Sid Charisse. They would come to have class because he was the Russian School of Ballet and he was an excellent teacher. In our little kiddies class, though, to show what a tiny world Hollywood was in those days, I have a wonderful photograph of our little kiddies dance class. And in this dance class, there are 3 girls among some other girls, and they sort of the stepladder of the 3 girls is Natalie Wood, Jill St. John, and me. Who knew that we would all be married in one way or another to Robert Wagner?
That's was foretelling, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, wasn't it? But that's how small the world was. It's very hard to discuss it with people who didn't live any part of it, because people always say, what was it like to grow up in Hollywood? And it was a small town and very much connected to the industry that created it.
Tell me more about Love Letters. Where and when?
It's going to be on the 11th of January, which in a matinee. We're going to have a matinee at the wonderful El Portal Theater. And I hope people will come.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed sitting down and talking with you.
And I've enjoyed you.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerle. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.